I'm Adam Niffen. No, I'm Jeremy Cocaine. This is Smith Welding Restoration. Well, it's what we do. That's what we do. We make things pretty.
Alright folks, I've taken time. I'm trying to get these doors lined up good. You can see the new cab corner was slid up under the old cab corner. So it's really in a big way not straight there. So what I've done, and forgive, my stud welder died, so I just spot weld those to the cab. I'm pulling these out flush and getting it where it's within reason. We don't need perfection because of what we're working with and what we started with, but it's got to be reasonable. You know, the gaps are lining up there now. I had to cut that open and push that in. I had to cut that open and pull it back. This is where we're at in the 72 C10. I'll spend my day cutting these cab corners up and pulling them, pushing them, and welding them, and getting them straight enough, hammer and dolly work a little bit. Get them to a point we can put a skim on it and it'll be alright. I got two little tiny tabs of metal I got to weld in that there was shit missing between the old and the new. So we'll get this straightened out and moved on. I've actually got my big straight edge over here that I use and have used for a long time. I don't even know where it came from, to be honest. It appeared one day, probably a decade ago. After that, I can weld up all the trim holes. I get this welding done and everything pushed around where I want it. I'll pull the door off for body work. We'll strip the trim, weld up the trim holes on it. So, enough jabberjawn. We'll work it. Got all the trim holes welded up. Body work started on the other side of it. The other door. 2 quick swipes, nothing major. I tap that high spot back down a little more so that low spot's not as prevalent. It takes less to fill. Remember, we let it all through here because it was so messed up. Not a lot of filler in there. I'm very happy. We don't have an inch of filler in there like it was before. We have some little dots here and there we're going to have to deal with and address, because you know that's a low spot, you know that's a low spot. We'll welder up those, and I'll end up doing a swipe down both sides. Who knows, the whole door might get a skim. There are holes there for some kind of marker badging. This owner's going with a vintage air unit, so we can get rid of everything. There's a plate that goes over that from vintage air, so I don't have to cut that up and flatten it out, which makes my life a little easier. There's the fender. What is that? Driver's side, left side. Here's the fender passenger side. Trim holes again. We did some metal work under here. That was missing right there, so I cut it right at that line. It all came together really nice for me. Metal work there. I'm sectioning just a little bit, as you can see. That wasn't great, but it wasn't awful. We went ahead and opted to fiberglass and shaped that accordingly. Not my favorite option, but it functions for what we need. And I say we don't hide nothing from customers. The owner has seen every ounce of work we've done, more so than what I've shown on video. This one here, the only real place it was boogered up was right there. Cut it right along there. I even cut this so I could cut the piece underneath it, and then I re-welded and stitched it. And the plug welds there and there. That's where that step is. I cut it right at the step. Cleaned it up. It's very clean. Very good repair. Lordy. Let's see. I'm going to step in here for the hood. It's not perfect. There's some trash that wound up in it. But it's inside of the hood. Gloss black like everything else, chassis and such wise. We'll go ahead and sand off all this overspray. Clean all this up. We'll tape it along this edge. I'm going to try to keep that black and tape it along that edge. We'll see how that works out. We'll see. Sometimes they don't tape off like they should, like you think they should. Yeah, we oversprayed it, but we still have a little bit of blocking to do. So that's all good for us and our purposes. That's the old polyester slick sand. We don't need to do any of that. We can scuff and shoot it, make sure all the paint is adhered, but past that it's unimportant to us. We wanted all this straight and clean though. You'll have to take my word for it, I reckon, but this body work really is quite straight. There's some foibles here and there, but they're minor. You gotta love it. Fenders ready to go into slick sand. There really isn't that much there. It was just a little wavy, so we fixed it. Of course, I mean, you're going to do some warping when you weld up trim holes. I use an aluminum block when I weld the trim holes up for a heat sink. That pulled a lot of the heat out, but even at that, with that trim being bolted to the body for so many years, it's going to create distortions anyhow, where people have leaned up against the trim. Where I welded it, it's going to create distortion. So, you know, 40, 50 years almost of beating on this thing. Felt pretty good. I'm not mad at it. Next up on the block will be the doors. We're doing every component, one component at a time. We'll skim these, flip them over, get the inside scrubbed up good. They don't really need any body work on the insides. We'll just scrub them so they can be painted. We'll pull the hinges so everything can be painted properly. The underside of the hood, you know, is already black. This thing's blocked out the rest of the way. It's not bad. I'm pretty happy with it. I put cardboard down on our stand everywhere so we're not dickering up the black paint. That's our 72 C10. It's coming together pretty well. Goodness. We got a tailgate in a box still. We will get it out and we'll block it with 180, see where it's at. If it's nice and straight, it should be within reason. We won't slick sand it, we'll seal it and paint it. But this one's drawing to a close. We're gonna see paint first of the week. And why first of the week? It looks like we're close. We should be able to paint this week. We got paint from a new supplier, and he's actually out of state, and he mixed up the color code I gave him, which was the color code on the can we got with the paint, or with the truck. The original Centauri that the previous owner who had done the work painted it with. And it was a dark blue. 523 was the code. I don't know this. I learned this. I know it now. But it was a dark blue, and he went in and had it retinted. So we had the right color in the wrong can. So we got to send our paint back in and get it retinted. He'll be here Thursday. He'll bring it back Friday, and so it goes. We'll have the box here at some point this week, and we're actually given clearance to shoot it whole, which would be the bottom braces, both sides, and the header panel. I declined the offer because you'll have creep back where everything bolts together. It's a nut and bolt bed. So we're going to shoot it in panels, unless I can devise some good way to not have creep back, but I haven't come up with one. So we're coming together. Jeremy's cleaning up the big nozzle gun right now from the slick sand. Tomorrow he'll get the fenders and the doors. Tomorrow we're going to start blocking the body, get it all the way down with 180 and minor metal glaze, so we can bring it to a paintable finish. That's where we're at, folks. Talk to you later. Alright, so we're grinding away on the C10. You see this has been scrubbed down here. It needs scuffed and then cleaned up the rest of the way, ready for paint. This has been sealed and wet sanded. Direct to metal, epoxy. It actually has a real nice wet sand to it. Let's get done with this. I might divulge the products we're using. This has all been pretty much cleaned out, at least the up sides here, and scrubbed. Minor work to do here. We'll get this all in details like this. And then I got some chunks back here, little minor things. I'll deal with those first thing in the morning. We'll get this off the sealer so we can paint it. It can still leave this week, but we're coming close on time. You'll see right now Nick is giving wet sand to the sealer on the tailgate. Gives it a nice clean tooth. We'll scrub it in the morning before we hang it up to paint it. Over here, we had strange reactive chemicals, and I don't know what precipitated it exactly. Mill buildup, the product below it. I want to lean on the product below it. I think it was all lacquer products all the way down to steel. Anyhow, this door I wound up scraping down with a razor blade and starting over. So it'll go in slick sand tomorrow, so Thursday we can seal it, Friday we can paint it up and have it ready to go, or something of that nature. That's where we're at on this one. I might be able to, we'll do 2 nice thin coats of slick sand and I can block it tomorrow, maybe get it in sealer tomorrow still. But that's where we're at there. This, I don't know. I ended up with, like, it's all dried out now, but the layers underneath against the steel had reacted. And you get it sometimes. This shit just happens. You never know what someone else did before you. Scraped it off with a razor blade and started over because things weren't curing up the way they were supposed to. It didn't kick, and it was a 2-part. So it should have kicked and chemically cured, not air dried. We got some parts in to paint right now. The top of the hood's going in the sealer. The bottom side of the hood, if you'll recall, is painted and done. Gloss black with all the undercarriage parts. The inner fenders, we're painting those blue as per our request. So I shot some DTM on it. And I'm actually going to make a single stage up of our base coat. So I can just breeze through and have it all blue. Pull it out in the morning, flip it over, prep the underside. Whatever we gotta do, wet sand it down, and we're cruising. That's the C10 as it stands right now. Footage to follow. News at 11. It's in sealer. We'll wet sand it, be good to go. Inside of this is trimmed out. We went ahead and made a single stage out of the blue. You know, it's almost to the point. It's dust free. I was really getting on it there. So it's trimmed out blue. The overspray on any of the exterior of the panel, we're gonna have to wet sand down anyhow. We have to wet sand these fenders to paint them on the outside. We left that till now. Why? So we can sand down the overspray from the single stage. So we'll flip them over tomorrow morning, give them a good wet sander, get them set up and shoot them. We'll wet sand this down, get it set up and shoot it. We're shitting in tall grass now, folks. Wow, made it in a video. Thanks for checking in. Come back on the next one.
see what the hell we're up to next time. Subscribe, comment. Find us on over on the old Facebook, Smith Welding Restoration LLC on Facebook. Numbers at the beginning. Have any questions? Call.